name's Bond. James Bond.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Bond vs. Godzilla, the podcast that compares and contrasts two of the longest-running film series in cinema. God damn it.
What?
When I'm doing these, just don't do anything.
I'm just having to calm down.
I know, but like Jake will be doing his introductions, and I'll hear like that. Hello and welcome. You're listening to Bond vs. Godzilla, the podcast that compares and contrasts two of the longest-running film series in cinema history. My name is Cruz Moore, and I will be your resident Godzilla expert on this show. Joining me on this cinematic journey for however long it lasts are three of my very good friends who each have their own history and experience with both film franchises. Bond expert Jacob Roberts.
Hi, I'm Jacob Roberts, bringer of bad news from outer space.
Audio engineer Willie Crook.
I'm sitting very tall today.
And digital artist Chas Lemons.
I'm Charles Lemons, and have you heard of Michael Jackson?
On today's episode, we'll once again be tackling a doozy of a triple feature, the original made-for-TV adaptation of Casino Royale from 1954, the John Huston satire of Casino Royale from 1967, and Godzilla vs. Monster Zero from 1965. So without further ado, Jake, give us a backstory on these two high-stakes films.
Throughout the 1950s, Ian Fleming was trying desperately to get his James Bond novels onto the silver screen. However, he was having trouble finding anyone willing to buy the rights. In 1954, 1 year after the publishing of his first James Bond novel, Casino Royale, CBS obtained the TV rights to the book and adapted it as an episode of their live broadcast drama program, Climax. Bond himself was rewritten as an American agent named Jimmy Bond for the American audience, but otherwise the special remained very faithful to the original book. It starred Barry Nelson as Jimmy Bond and Peter Lorre as Le Chiffre. The program was quickly forgotten. In 1955, the rights for the first James Bond film fell into the lap of a producer named Gregory Ratoff for $6,000. Ratoff died in 1960 before any progress could be made. His widow was represented by her agent, Charles K. Feldman, who obtained the film rights through her. By then, another more historic deal had been made. Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman had made a deal with Fleming and had earned the film rights for all of Ian Fleming's James Bond novels. All that is, except for one. Eon Productions did not have the rights to the first Bond novel, Casino Royale, because it sat in the lap of Mr. Feldman. Once the rights were his, Feldman wasted no time in presenting his rights to Eon Productions so that they may work together to adapt the book. However, the two sides could not come to terms. Without the aid of Eon Productions, there was only one thing left for Feldman to do: produce the movie himself. Feldman knew, rightfully so, that he had no chance in hell to compete with what had become the biggest film juggernaut in the world. So instead, he decided to tackle the movie from a different angle. His version of James Bond would be a comedy, a satirical spoof of the increasingly popular spy genre. This rendition of Casino Royale would feature an all-star A-list cast, 5 directors, 4 writers, and would be an absolutely incoherent dumpster fire of a drug trip. And I apologize to my co-hosts for subjugating them to it.
7 James Bonds at Casino Royale. They came to save the world and win the gal at Casino Royale. 6 of them went to a heavenly spot. The 7th one is going to a place where it's terribly hot. The formula is C with a 007. He's got a redhead in his arm. He's a lover when you are in trouble. Have no fear, look who's here. James Bond.
For the record, Jake, I don't understand why you apologize when you showed us the greatest movie ever made.
You heard it here first, folks. Cruz likes that movie more than any Godzilla movie.
The views represented on Bond vs. Godzilla do not necessarily reflect the views of Cruz Moore as a person.
Movie's an experience.
It's a wonderful experience.
It is.
This is pure nonsense from start to finish, and I love every second of it.
It is.
Yeah.
But before we get into that total madness, do we want to just get the forgettable 1954
Yeah, let's get the
thing out of the way?
54 one out of the way. I wanted to show that to you. It is an important piece of Bond history, as it is the first time Bond was adapted at all in live action in that way. It's very 50s. It's very faithful to the original novel, aside from some key differences. It's rather faithful. So if you want to get a sense of how the original Fleming novels felt like, they feel a lot like that. Casino Royale was the third episode of the CBS live broadcast television series Climax.
Really? That early?
Yep, they're very early on. The original live broadcast was actually broadcasted in color, although at the time, color TV was still considered a very rare luxury. Not a lot of people had color TV, but it was broadcast in color. Sadly, that form of the story is forever lost to us, as it is considered lost media. It was recovered in the 80s in the form of black and white kinescopes, or otherwise known as just a person pointing their camera at the television screen, which is why we saw it in the quality that we did. Bond and Leiter, known in this as Clarence Leiter, their nationalities were swapped in order to make it more approachable for the American audience. In 1958, CBS commissioned Ian Fleming to write original stories to be used in a James Bond TV series. The series never came to pass, and so Fleming turned some of the unused scripts into an anthology of James Bond short stories, most of which would later be adapted into movies.
Yeah, this adaptation left me very depressed in a way, because it's like you have a source material that is James Bond, and yet could you make it any more boring and uninteresting? Even if it is like kind of like a humble just TV presentation. If this was like my first introduction to James Bond for that time period, I'd be like, wow, I really don't care about this character or where he comes from whatsoever. He plays a casino game. He sort of gets tortured, which you don't see. And then any action that he actually does is completely off screen.
All the violence is done off screen.
Yeah,
Any guns that are fired, anyone who's shot is all done off screen.
James Bond, this man of action and subterfuge, doesn't do anything.
That's kind of doing this a disservice because they didn't have what we've seen until when it came out, because the TV adaptation that was only like an hour long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you can still punch a guy within an hour.
Yeah, I know,
or shoot a gun.
But for the 50s, I mean, and for like a live thing, I honestly liked it for what it was.
For the 50s, we had... Oh, that's right. Godzilla.
But that's a movie that people have done takes of, and they had time to put in cuts as opposed to a live stage and a live...
Okay, fine. We had an Alfred Hitchcock Presents and a lot of other things where things happen in the story.
I mean, in the 50s, wasn't there more limits as to like what you could do on a television broadcast?
Yes, but my point is that when you have a source material like James Bond, do something other than what you did.
Like, just try to push the limits in any way at least.
Like I said, this program wasn't necessarily highly celebrated or regarded. It was quickly forgotten as just another episode of this one anthology series. Humble is the right word for it. It exists as the humble beginnings of what would eventually come to be. Some things in the story I do like. I think Peter Lorre is an amazing Le Chiffre. I think he plays the part really well.
And he could have easily gone on to be in, like, because you said they wanted him for a movie adaptation, or no?
That I don't recall.
Oh, okay. But I think he could have easily worked as a villain if they put him into the actual series.
Oh, very much so. He's fantastic, and he actually looks pretty much identical to the way Ian Fleming describes Le Chiffre, looking like small, fat, toad-like. It fits him to a T.
Which is pretty much what Peter Lorre looks like.
Yeah, that's Peter Lorre's entire career. Casino Royale itself, the original book, isn't too complicated of a plot. It is, very simple. Go in, beat this guy in a game of Baccarat so he can't refinance his funds and he'll be in a load of trouble with Smersh. It's simple as that. The biggest difference between this adaptation and the original book is the completely rewriting of the original character Vesper Lind, who in the original novel ended up being a double agent and played a much bigger role, whereas in this adaptation they replaced her with just a common, average girl to pine after, Valerie Mathis. So, that part of it did get watered down a little, and I think it does kind of get bogged down when, you know, they actually sit down and explain the rules of Baccarat, which, you know, I get why they did it, because Baccarat was never big in the States. You know, no one's going to know what the hell Baccarat is, so you have to be able to follow the story, so they have to explain the rules of the game. But at the same time, you know, that does kind of bog things down.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's really not much else to say about Casino Royale 54. It is just the humble beginnings, an interesting piece of Bond history.
I agree.
Filled with insane piano playing music.
Oh yeah. The one notable part of this. What scene was it?
It's where it's Bond and what's her face trying to
Valerie.
like cover up their conversation by playing a piano record, but I'm assuming that it was a live piano player who sounded as if he ran out of sheet music and was just winging it.
Like, he ran out of sheet music like 40 seconds in, and he's just like, "Oh my god, I can't stop playing, or else they're
The
not
scene
going
is
to
still
pay
going.
me."
I can't stop.
And so he just absolutely discordant piano playing that does not fit with the scene whatsoever. And it's just like somebody was panicking at that point is all I'm certain of.
And then at one point it goes silent, and we hear a loud bang, and we're like, "Oh god, the piano player shot himself."
It is fun watching a piece of media like this, which, you know, was originally intended to be seen on a screen like the size of a postage stamp.
Yeah.
And watching it on, you know, modern day big screens. So you can see all those imperfections. You know, you can see the shadow of the boom mic at one point. There's one part where
Turn the light on. Turn the light on.
Yeah, there was that one part where the lighting didn't get to the scene in time.
yeah,
You can hear people coughing, which I can't imagine why with all the smoking that was going on in the scene.
The one that really caught my eye and ear was when Lakeith was talking and you couldn't
Yeah.
hear him.
you had to turn up the audio on him. So like the first few words of his sentence you just cannot hear.
They changed it to American so it could be more relatable, but if he was British, it wouldn't change it. It wouldn't change the fact that he does nothing in this story.
Yeah, that's true.
The only thing that would have changed is that American audience wouldn't be able to understand him.
Well, at least
Yeah, but I found
Okay.
Lighter more captivating
I agree.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
I
when he
feel-
wasn't answering the phone 3 times in a row.
I
Yeah,
do
there's a
feel
lot-
like Bond's actor fell flat.
Yeah.
But the overall thing didn't for me.
It's great when a James Bond story ends with James Bond calling the police.
yeah.
Metal Bond solid.
Call the police. The end.
Tactical telephone action.
And as I explained at the theater, that wasn't. There was more to the ending. At least another 1 or 2 minutes to the ending that, unfortunately, was not recovered with the rest of the program. So that's,
Do not exist anymore. It
Yeah.
is lost media.
exactly.
So are we all comfortable moving on to assaulting seals and screaming goats and UFOs?
I mean, have we all taken our coordinated drugs yet?
Wait, you haven't?
Chaz, you need to take your drugs. You're not singing enough Tiger Tongues.
Yeah, I was into this film when we're already in this ornate dining room full of discordant bagpipes and Scottish gibberish. And then out of nowhere, these women are carrying a screaming goat. And I'm like, oh dear.
Is this the kind of movie we're in?
Why did God craft goats to scream? To quote a line from Twin Peaks to summarize this movie, it's like I'm having the most beautiful dream and the most terrible nightmare all at once.
That's a very apt description.
Yeah.
Every set in this movie is like packed to the brim. The walls,
It's gorgeous.
it is gorgeous, but the walls, every piece of painting on the walls has like an inch between it and the other paintings on the walls.
There is no empty space in this movie.
We go from like ornate mansions to rooms that are completely red to German expressionism to a UFO. The production design was bonkers and also probably better than any other James Bond production design I've seen so far.
Which says a lot.
Yeah.
Bringing up those points is the perfect segue for me to kind of go into why this movie is like this.
But do I want to know why? It's almost a beautiful unicorn in space.
It's so nice to have the
You're free to
mystery
leave
of
the room. I want to know what the fuck I just saw.
Okay, I'm going to go into the booth.
It's a mess.
no spoilers for Cruz for how it was made.
It is a mess, but it is a beautiful mess. It is a Mozart of troubled movie production. 4 different directors in charge of 4 different segments that would then be snipped together to form a single picture. The directors each had their own team and were pretty much working in a vacuum with absolutely no correspondence with each other.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
When Charles K. Feldman, when he saw the final script, he said to one of the directors, Val Guest, he said, "Well, the whole thing really doesn't make sense." To which Guest replied, "That's a bit of an understatement."
So this was basically a cinematic potluck where everyone throws up.
It was, they did try to save it though.
It's a white elephant movie.
So
Yeah.
then it was at that point that Feldman charged Guest with taking the 4 different film segments and linking them together into some sort of narrative. That was Val Guest's job, is to somehow narratively link these 4 completely separate stories.
He then proceeded to shoot himself
Unfortunately, he survived.
and continued his
This,
work.
of course, this, of course, was just one of the massive delays that plagued the film.
Oh, no.
Guest used David Niven and Ursula Andress as a sort of framing device to move the film from one scene to another where necessary. So when it would have got done with one director's segment, David Niven and Ursula Andress would have a scene written that would loosely link into the next segment. And Val Guest was the only one keeping the whole thing together as best as he could. He was going to be rewarded for his diligence with a special credit as coordinating director. Guest refused the credit because he didn't want the bulk of the blame for a product that sure as hell was not coordinated. No, seriously. Val Guest's original contract for the film was for 8 weeks. He ended up working on the picture for 8 months.
Ugh.
And it was the studios weren't divided by director; they were divided by set. So certain directors would have to, jump from studio to studio, just use different sets.
So then, with all these stories that are trying to be interconnected, what happened when they got to the ending, where they basically just turned it into "fuck it" the movie?
Okay, well, the ending was always supposed to be fuck it, the movie. The final climax was always supposed to be just hell on wheels nonsense. Like Blazing Saddles kind of a thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking last
Yeah,
night. I'm like, this is
yeah.
pretty much just Blazing
Blazing
Saddles.
Saddles, yeah. But there was drama on the set that made the kind of latter half to latter third of the filming of this movie even worse. There was major drama on set between Peter Sellers and Orson Welles. I looked it up. I found conflicting sources claiming what the root of that animosity was. I'm sure it was more than one thing, and I'll leave it to people who are more knowledgeable about the making of this movie than I am to better explain that. But yeah, there was drama. Either way, it seems like the two refused to work in the same studio with each other. And Sellers would straight up not show up for filming if he knew Wells was going to be there, which is why Evelyn Trumbull and Lashif are never together in the same shot.
I just realized that, yeah. And yet the scene works so well.
It does. It was filmed well. That was definitely one of the more competently done parts of the movie.
You have two of the greatest actors for that time period, and they do not want to work with each other.
No. Peter Sellers lamented the fact that Casino Royale was being filmed as a comedy, as he wanted to play Bond straight.
Which he does a great job as.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. When he partially due to him himself taking control, because he constantly tried to rewrite his own scenes to make them more serious. So, and yeah, that explains why the most serious scenes were those card game scenes between Sellers and Wells, because that's kind of where Sellers kind of took control. Apparently, Peter Sellers at one point punched director Joseph McGrath when he complained about Sellers' behavior on set.
Wow.
So that tonal shift around that middle part of the movie, that's why.
So did Sellers just get fed up with Orson Welles constantly doing his magic tricks?
Orson Welles insisted on doing that magic. Orson Welles
I knew it. I
insisted
fucking
on
knew
doing
it.
the magic. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that Sellers did not appreciate that in the slightest. But yeah, Sellers was so bad on set that his contract was terminated early. And the crew had to make do with filming the rest of the movie without him, which is why he completely disappears during the big climax.
Yeah, I noticed that.
He just completely straight up disappears after that trippy hallucinogenic torture sequence.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Orson Welles, in addition to being a stage actor, director, and a ton of things, he was also a magician who very much, I guess, inserted his tricks into whatever he did, including F for fake. So it was really entertaining seeing him doing the same shtick and going like,
That's
all right,
Orson.
it's just more your parlor tricks, buddy.
So because of the mess of like literally firing their own lead, several scenes in the film went unfinished. For example, we never see Evelyn Trumbull get captured on screen, instead just being already found a prisoner in Dr. Noah's lair with no explanation. And
That makes sense.
And if you're asking what was the deal with that random Formula One car non sequitur, well, that was an outtake inserted into the film in order to salvage some kind of explanation to get Trumbull to the torture scene. Since they couldn't film him as one of the dead angels in the final shot, they instead hastily cut in a recycled shot of him blowing out candles while in Scottish dress.
This movie's wonderful.
Oh my god.
So, do I want an explanation for the tiger tongue?
I looked.
Or is there?
There is none. There is none.
I think that was just supposed to be,
Funny?
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Random.
Because for those who haven't seen the film, there is a taxidermy tiger that were like, okay, that's cool. And then there's a close-up of it where a live
Like,
tongue just sticks out of it for no
randomly,
reason.
like something else is going on, and it just cuts to this tiger with the tongue just kind of like finagling out, and it's like, what the
And then
fuck?
the scene goes on, and I'm like, no.
It's
You
like-
go back.
and it's
You
kind
go
of-
back and you explain that.
And it's kind of horrifying because the tongue, it looks like it was hastily made from like pink taffy over like a metal wire or something. But it's just like, what the fuck is going on?
Like,
did we know
honestly,
that-
I had a feeling when you guys were like demanding an answer that you guys weren't gonna get one. Like, I had a feeling that tiger tongue was just supposed to be a what the fuck moment.
Yeah, most of the decisions in this movie were just like because they felt like it.
I want to shake the man's hand whose decision it was to say, I want 2 sea lions battling to the death for supremacy.
That was probably the director of that sequence.
Wonderful.
At the first initial test screening, Feldman wanted the best jokes to be more equally spaced out. He felt that the jokes weren't spaced out enough. So he told the editor to move jokes from one part of a movie to the other. Again, this was at the test screening, which means the movie was already filmed. This man did not know how to make a movie.
So
We'll
here's the
fix
most...
it in post. No, you fucking won't.
What's post?
Post.
So Jake,
Yeah.
here's the most important question regarding the film. How faithful is it to the book?
The card game between Trumbull and Lashif is extremely faithful for the most part. The rest of it is fuck all.
Okay.
So the card.
So someone handed him the book with those 2 pages. Like, okay,
no.
go ahead.
The rest of it is fuck all.
Orson Welles just added the little parts about him writing the magic in the book, and he's like, those were in there.
Mr. Wells is
Casino Royale by Orson Welles.
Mr. Wells, the pages you handed me were your lines were just inserted with cran. Magic it is. So yeah, this movie came out only 2 months before You Only Live Twice. So
Which made more money?
You Only Live Twice did. However, this film was a financial success, technically speaking.
Oh, I thought it was a flop.
No, it was a financial success, mainly due to the James Bond name being enough to draw people in. It was critically panned,
Okay.
but it did technically speaking make money. Burt Bacharach's score was praised, with Mike Redway's rendition of the theme song hitting #1 on the Easy listening charts. And the song "The Look of Love," which is played when Vesper Lynd seduces Trumbull through that aquarium.
Is that the slow motion sequence?
Yeah.
That song is amazing.
It was nominated for an Academy Award and would later reappear in the first Austin Powers movie.
So technically, this is an Oscar Award nominated film.
Yeah,
I
Oh
love
my
it.
God.
I love it.
yeah.
Let me know when I see it again.
if it was like re-released today, you could have that little Oscar statue on the front and be like,
God, yeah.
critically acclaimed Casino Royale.
It's amazing that this movie actually did make money though. The studio only allowed for a $6 million budget, but in the end, the film cost nearly $12 million to make.
And it still made money?
It still made money.
And it all went to the Tiger Tongue.
This ironically means that this film was more expensive to make than any of the official Bond films we have seen up to this point.
And that's
Oh my
why
God.
it's the best one yet.
I love the snides at the beginning with David Niven making chides at the fellow who has replaced me and is now using my name and number as a just a little fun jab at Sean. And it was all made in good fun. Like I said, Feldman originally wanted to work with Eon to make this movie, but they couldn't come to terms, so they competed instead. This film has a lot of actors and a lot of big names. Several of them also appearing in other films of the series. Most notably, Vesper Lind is played by Ursula Andress, who played Honey Rider in Dr. No.
So they're all connected, technically.
And she's using her original voice and accent. Vladek Shabal, who I probably butchered, he played the Smersh informant that got blown up in a telephone booth after the auction.
That's also great.
He also played the chess master Kronstein in From Russia with Love. So he just cannot get away from being killed by his own organization. Other fun cameos in the movie include Peter O'Toole, who was paid with only a bottle of champagne.
What?
Frankenstein's monster.
Oh yeah,
my
that's right.
God, this movie's amazing.
Frankenstein's monster was played by Dave Prowse, who would go on to play Frankenstein's monster in Hammer films, as well as the physical actor for Darth Vader. George Raft was seen flipping his coin as a reference to his famous character from Scarface. He received higher billing over more prominent members of the cast, despite the fact that he's only on screen for a few seconds. So, following this adaptation, the rights to the film remained with Columbia Films until 1989, when the studio and the rights to their intellectual property portfolio was acquired by the Japanese company Sony. In 1999, following legal action between Sony Pictures Entertainment and MGM UA, Sony traded the rights to Casino Royale for MGM's partial rights to Spider-Man. This led to Eon Productions making the 2006 film Casino Royale
And they ruined it.
by making it have
An
a
actual
plot.
movie.
They ruined the movie by making it a movie.
Yeah.
Where's my UFOs?
Guessing there's no asking which Casino Royale you prefer.
God, I really don't know, because I think 2006's Casino Royale is a lot of fun, and it's one of my favorite the Bond films. But I mean, this is in a completely different section all on its own.
Yeah.
But I guess I can say there are two films in existence that share the same title that are both equally amazing.
The 2006 Casino Royale is, for the most part, still really faithful to the original book. They just added more plot elements because, as you've seen from Casino 54, the original plot of the book isn't really long enough to fulfill an entire feature-length film. You either have to make it short and simple, or you have to add more stuff in order to fill out the plot. So, the original book didn't have Bond stopping a terrorist plan that results in Le Chiffre losing all the money. Le Chiffre just already needs money. The original book does have the carved out seat that Bond is forced to sit on and being tortured. 67 film does make a slight reference to it with the seatless chair. And in that scene in Casino 67, you can see attached to the behind the chair is a carpet beater, referencing the fact that in the original book, Le Chiffre tortured Bond by hitting his balls with a carpet beater, not a knotted up rope.
See, so compare that, Willie, to the 54. Oh, I'm going to torture you with this little tool. You won't see it on screen.
That the torture was done well.
To be fair, having your toenails removed with a pair of pliers is
that didn't come
torture.
across to me though.
How?
What do you mean how? Like,
Yeah, that's
we
what
don't
he was-
see anything.
He was
and
prying off his toenails.
because okay, so if someone's getting their toenails pried off, their reaction is going to be, "Ow." Like I get it, it's for TV, but it's like there is There was something here that is not being
Like,
projected.
I agree.
He looks more like his
He's
piggies are
mildly
being played with.
inconvenienced.
I
He looked
agree.
more in pain when Vesper was talking to him. It looked like she was talking him to death.
He's like, oh no, just shut up already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I never said the movie was a masterpiece.
Give
I
me
just said I
Mads
could
Mik-
appreciate it.
Give me Mads Mikkelsen or give me death.
The look of love is in your eyes. A look your smile can't disguise. The look of love, it's saying so much more than just words could ever say. And what my heart has heard, well, it takes my breath away.
It's a bunny with a gun.
What do you want, Bunny with a gun?
It's a bunny with a gun, a Zydrate gun.
A bunny with the gun, a bunny with
bunny
the
with a
gun,
gun?
a bunny with the gun.
Oh, man. Oh, no. Ideas.
Cruz has entered the vocal booth. He is dead now.
Cruz has entered professional voice recording. He's going to make all the ASMR.
He looks like he's like admiring art and, just, and trying to wonder and trying to make heads or tails of it.
Are you guys selling it?
No,
Damn it.
we bought it.
What?
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, Cruz. I hate that bang style, so you're going to have to suffer.
Then why did you have it for so long?
Because I did not have the wherewithal to be very judicious about my hairstyle. That's why.
Oh.
I don't know. Like I'm not crazy about like the roughed up kind of hair look.
It doesn't have to be rough. It was the cool Asian tech nerd, computer nerd look.
Okay, I guess I hated inhabiting that stereotype entirely, but I guess
What you do.
Just shut up and become an anime pro tag.
hey,
No, that's my job.
that is not for white people to decide.
It really is.
You must conform to our expectations of what your culture is. Don't you know
Welcome
nothing?
to America.
I
Pay your taxes and eat at McDonald's. In May 1965, giant monster enthusiast and Hollywood mogul Henry G. Saperstein made a deal with Toho to co-produce 5 motion pictures that would bring American stars to Japan to increase the overseas marketability of their science fiction films. One of the most prominent films became Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. A quasi-sequel to Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero replaces the convoluted assassination story with an entertaining space opera invasion that sees Godzilla and Rodan mind-controlled by extraterrestrials to destroy the Earth. This is the first Godzilla movie to introduce the antagonistic force of extraterrestrials, and it's one more staple that would stick throughout the future of the series. American actor Nick Adams, known at the time as the poor man's James Dean, stars in the film as a suave English-speaking astronaut, marking the first in-production collaboration between American and Japanese star power for the Godzilla series. This would also be the last Godzilla film where all 3 powerhouse creators, Eiji Tsuburaya, Akira Ifukube, and Ishiro Honda, would all collaborate together on the same project, signaling the beginning of the end of Toho's golden age of sci-fi. So, what did you guys think of Monster Zero?
This one was so much fun.
This one's also one of the films that's in my top 10 Godzilla films, so I was very happy that you guys responded so well to it.
Like there were some good twists and turns in there, but like the girlfriend being one of them, I was like, oh, okay.
So speaking of her, this movie introduces us to the famous Japanese actress Kumi Mizuno, who plays Miss Namikawa, and who also appears in a few more Godzilla movies in the future.
Cool.
Yeah.
So just as the Bond series has its Bond girls, I think she's definitely one of my favorite Godzilla girls.
She was fun.
Yeah,
Only-
I think she improves upon Akiko Wakabayashi's alien performance from the last film because her character is genuinely creepy and alluring at the same time.
That was another thing with with the female love interest and how she was introduced, and then they had her connected to that to the dummy corporation, and then also being the girlfriend of the guy. I thought, okay, so she's gonna be like this femme fatale kind of dangerous, sexy woman, but then she ends up turning coat in the end and actually being a lot more multifaceted than I originally expected her character was going to be. I actually really enjoyed all of the human characters in this film. I think this is the first Godzilla film that we've seen where I actually feel genuinely invested in all of the human characters and the plot going around with them.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, everyone puts in a really good genuine performance, and even if it does feel like a really well produced B movie, I just with the aliens at the beginning, it might not be a huge surprise that they end up backstabbing the humans, but just because they look so weird that I couldn't stop making jokes about how they're just gonna eat the people because there's just so many convenient. It's just so convenient for them to do so even at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely hilarious how for some reason you were convinced that these
You were
aliens
cannibals?
were,
Yeah, I was listening to you next to me making these jokes. I'm like, why the fuck is he making a cannibal joke every 2 seconds?
Excuse me, controller.
Where's
I
he
have a
getting this
question.
from?
I have a question for you. It's like, what is a medium rare?
The designs on the aliens were really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a fan of kind of that 50s, 60s Zera style sci-fi, classic Doctor Who stuff. So that scratched that itch for me. I'm like, yeah, they're just the right level of weird and stupid, yet at the same time cool. I felt that their whole plan was rather inspired. I really liked how meticulous their overall plan was of, controlling Ghidorah to using Ghidorah pretty much as a tool to get the friendship of the Earthlings so that they can steal the monsters and mind control the monsters. Like, aha, now we have the power. And it's just like, oh, that's just fun.
Yeah.
That's just fun.
That I felt bad for Godzilla being left in space.
Oh my god, it was a total dick move. That's my favorite thing to say about this movie is that they take Godzilla, he was sleeping under a lake, just sleeping. They freaking kidnap him.
He was holding onto his tail when they did it.
Yeah, they charred him off into another planet on the other end of the solar system, which, thank God it only takes apparently 5 minutes to travel between Earth and on the other side of Neptune. Thank God it's such a short trip and we can take it 10 times in a movie.
Yeah,
but,
we're watching them fly through space, and Chess is like, "Yep, that's light speed."
So they take Godzilla and Rodan to this planet, just force it to fight Ghidorah again, and then they just fucking leave him there. It's like, dick move, humans. This is why you destroy your cities.
It did always make me kind of sad as a kid watching that scene because the soundtrack takes this very kind of somber clarinet note going as they're just floating away and they're looking up at him, and I'm like, oh man.
It makes you sympathetic for Godzilla. The fight on Planet X was a really just badass fight. Step up choreography wise from the previous movie. I feel like they got a better handle on how to control Ghidorah, and I think that really comes out. And then Godzilla's little victory pogo hop at the end, which I have seen a gif of Godzilla just doing that little pogo victory hop. And so that's one of the moments that I've been waiting for. Like where is it? There it is. That's the thing I've seen. There it is.
So that's known as the Godzilla Shay. And let's see here.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's reading it.
So almost everyone was opposed to the Godzilla Shay dance, including director Ishiro Honda, who, of course, started the series with him being a nuclear metaphor, and now he's watching this, creation become more kid-friendly. But it goes back and forth. People say it was Eiji Tsuburaya's suggestion. Other people say it was the actor who played the controller's suggestion.
Huh. Interesting.
So they were the only two who were like, no, this will be really good. This will be it'll really get the kids going and it'll be a fun thing to watch. And everyone was like, no, don't do it. But they went ahead with it, and supposedly it was based off of a popular dance popularized by a manga character at the time.
Okay.
So to a certain extent, you could sort of equivalate it to the Gangnam Style of the time. And that's kind of the deal.
From Japan.
Yeah.
You can see how that could be a little bit, especially if you're the creator of this character who is supposed to have very serious undertones with a very serious message and origins. I totally get 100% not wanting that to be foiled in any way. At the same time, bring on the silly Godzilla dances. I love
Because admittedly, as a kid watching that, it made me happy because it's like this is
Godzilla
awesome.
won, and he's celebrating. Damn it!
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you guys heard the controller during that scene, but after he does his dance, he just goes, "A happy moment."
I heard that.
Controller was fun. It was just that complete deadpan, emotionless delivery of the controller and the aliens. And it's just
Which I love everything about Yoshio Toshiya's performance of that because, I mean, granted, it's the dubbing as well, but it's the fact that he moves his hands whenever he's talking and the way the dubbing actor's dialect of just like, everything is numbered here. The monster is 0.
I love the little hand motions he ever does whenever he gives a command, be it to like one of his men or like to control his ship, but like every single command just comes like with some kind of
It's
hand
super
motion.
cool. I don't know why I love it so much.
And like my next set of jokes was about how like they were starting like a techno band in the ship.
Okay, that one I got where you were coming from because they do
Yeah.
look like freaking Evo or whatever.
Yeah, they
Daft Punk.
look
Yeah.
like they heavily inspired Devo.
Yeah, I really want those visors, even though you probably couldn't see shit out of those.
Oh no, those. You could tell
And
that they didn't have any plans for them to have any major running scenes while wearing those costumes
Yeah.
because they would
Which
be
is
tripping
why-
on their asses.
Which is why I don't know if you noticed it, but the scene where they're running up the staircase to talk to the controller, they're kind of tripping over themselves a little bit, and that's because they couldn't see.
You can't see out of these glasses with eye slits.
So Nick Adams and the actor who played the controller of the Zillions were really good friends on set, and Nick would constantly ask him like how to say certain things in Japanese. So there were several times where Nick would ask him how to say good morning, and Yoshio would tell him how to say I'm hungry, just to mess with him. And then he also asked, like, what do I say to flatter a Japanese woman? And he told him how to say, are you making a profit? So there were several times.
I love it. That's hilarious.
There were several times where the crew
Brutal.
would be like, who's teaching Nick these Japanese words? Because this doesn't make any sense. So in case you were curious, since there is an English-speaking actor throughout this entire film,
I was actually going to ask that. Yeah. How does the Japanese version handle it?
well, they have him dubbed over by a Japanese.
Okay,
actor,
fair enough.
But throughout the actual production, Nick Adams said all of his lines in English while everyone else spoke in Japanese.
Wow.
And yet it flows really well.
It does flow surprisingly well for them doing it like that. I was wondering, like, wait a second, he actually looks like he's speaking
Yeah.
English.
Yeah, when they
Yeah. What was that? His actual voice?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No. When the movie first started and it first came to my attention that there was an American actor in the film, my immediate thought was, oh God, he's just going to be cannon fodder. Either he's going to be comic relief or he's going to exist just to get killed off. But he actually ended up being like the most interesting character in the movie, like arguably the main character.
Yeah, he's very active throughout the film. So
Yeah.
I was so happy, Chaz, when at one point you're like, is he doing like a James Dean impersonation? Because I'm like, dude, you are completely on point because he was kind of known as like the poor man's James Dean at the time.
Because in the bathroom of the theater where we're watching this is a poster for James Dean's Rebel Without a Cause. And I was like starting to get like crossover references of like the look that was on this guy's face
Yeah,
and
where
the
he's
look
like squinting his eyes and turning his head to the side.
Yeah, and he's kind of like pouting, but just a little bit.
It'll be interesting when we eventually get to James Dean's appearance in Bond.
Oh, that's cool.
She
All right.
she was such a good Godzilla girl from such a good Godzilla family.
That was another thing.
Oh,
Like,
James Dean. It's my favorite sushi roll.
oh my God.
I also love the fact, Chaz, that you took the fact that Nick Adams was not dubbed in this movie as like a superpower for him. It's like, Glenn, there's nothing you can do. And you're like, I'm the only one who's not dubbed in this movie, baby. I can do anything. And then the aliens grab him and you're like, get your dirty dubs off of me.
Yeah, It's like this movie has like just the right amount of camp to be like riffable, but you could totally watch this movie straight and enjoy it.
No. I think this movie has the perfect amount of charm.
Agree.
It's not too campy, but it also doesn't take itself too seriously. It is just pure charm.
So speaking of James Bond, I recently learned that in 1965, Akira Takarada, who plays Fuji in this film, and who we also saw in the first Godzilla film, him and Miyahama also starred in the Japanese equivalent of James Bond in a movie called 100 Shot, 100 Killed, also known as Iron Finger. So if you guys like, I will show you the trailer for that film.
Sounds fun.
Because it looks bonkers and yet is not available in the U.S.
Which is why you need to use a VPN like NordVPN. Sponsor.
No.
It's Japanese Groucho Marx.
No, right?
Oh, just like in James Bond.
あんたがあの拳銃を掴んでこちらを向くと同時に僕は一発だけライフルを撃つ。背広を叩
Oh, I'm immediately in love.
This movie looks awesome.
しない僕でも可愛い子には
You need to rewatch this. Oh my god. It is a national Japanese tragedy that this didn't become a franchise.
専門は爆発物一切
I love it. Yes.
危ないな、このライターのガスは普通のガスじゃないんだ。生産ガス。
Oh my god, that totally looks like a kid on himself.
Yeah.
Nanika, 最後に望むはないか。タバコを一本吸わしてくれ。マッチをもらったら、あのドラム缶に死ぬない込んだ。
Gotta have exploding barrels. Gotta have exploding barrels.
It looks like he's like coiling pointing to like, yeah, exploding barrels. And then it's like horrible war footage.
So for listeners who couldn't see, when this trailer started, Jacob's eyes lit up like Christmas morning.
Oh, it was beautiful. just immediately, I just, mwah.
I also feel the need to come to the defense of actor Akira Kubo, who played the nerdy inventor Tetsuo.
I loved him.
Because, oh, that's good.
Same.
Because Chaz seemed to like be making fun of him the whole time, but he actually appears in future Godzilla movies and was widely known in Japan for his range in both comedy and dramatic roles.
I loved him. I thought the character had a nice balance of being the nerd, yet at the same time he was capable.
Yeah.
Like he did feel like an everyday middleman just kind of caught in these extreme scenarios that he wasn't equipped for.
Yeah.
And yet he handled them to the best of his abilities. So yeah, he was a little geeky, but in a relatable sort of way that made him really endearing. My biggest issue with the movie, which I was definitely at a disadvantage for having to watch this movie with a state-of-the-art sound system, was all of the high-pitched squeaking. My ears hurt walking out of the theater.
Tetsuo creates pretty much the loudest and most obnoxious rape whistle in this film. And coming from, like, as a kid watching this on a TV set, you know, you remember it and you don't think about it. And then you project it in a 5.1 surround sound system, and you're like, oh yeah, this movie has that.
Like it's
Enjoy, guys.
It's like it sounds like the basic electronic siren that you could make like just using circuitry with no speakers.
Oh, just by the end, it just felt like needles directly on my eardrum.
You're welcome.
If there are any other people who have worked with analog audio equipment listening to this, it's very similar to when a preamp or some kind of audio equipment malfunctions and it squeals like that really high-pitched squeal noise. It was very similar to that.
So speaking of Tetsuo, do you remember the scene where he's going to like sneak up on the Zillions' really nice house they have out there by the lake, and he just falls through the floor?
Yes. Oh my god, that was freaking hilarious. I was laughing my freaking ass off when that happened.
So when I was a kid, as I do as an adult, I would constantly quote movies, both when I'm not watching them and while I'm watching them.
For sure.
So when it got to the part where he screams when he falls through the floor, I would scream with him, which led one of my parents to rush into the room and be like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing, I'm watching a movie." And they're like, "Oh, God, Cruz, I thought you've been kidnapped or something. Don't do that."
That's what the UFOs are for.
Yeah. As I said before, the Godzilla series was my first introduction to a lot of different things when it came to just, I guess, life. So this film introduced me to the concept of space travel, UFOs, extraterrestrials, the fact that you can't breathe in space. So it's one more example of, like, basically education before school even started for me.
It's Godzilla Garden.
Yeah.
Or
That sounds
growing up.
wonderful. I'm going to make, like, a foundation of introducing Japanese culture to little kids, and it's going to be called Godzilla Garden. And then I'm going to get sued by Toho.
Growing up, were you convinced that there was a real Planet X?
No. I mean, growing up, I wasn't even sure what planets were at that point, so there you go.
Ain't no Planet X because ain't no...
But this was also my first introduction to King Ghidorah, and to me, I think this is so much better than a woman constantly prophesizing, saying King Ghidorah is going to show up any moment now. You're all going to be doomed. He's going to show up. Versus you see lightning in space, and that's the first introduction you get of him.
Yes.
And then we see him in full regalia, and it's like, oh,
That
the
was
lightning was
ominous.
his power.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
You know,
And it's so cool to see him this time with his head's like looking more in control. It's like he feels more fully realized.
And
this
he's
time.
in his element, which is space.
Yeah.
And I love the image of this movie where we have an astronaut that's carrying a flag for the United Nations, Japan, and America while holding a gun.
Yep.
Earth in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And then and then I also pointed out that the flag is hilarious because it only goes up to like his waist. Like it's a very tiny flagpole with 3 flags on it. It's like, yeah, you can stick that on a rock because no one will see that. I think amongst us all, some of our one of our favorite images from the movie is just Godzilla and Rodan just sitting on the ground looking bored.
Yeah. like Godzilla had the full on arm, chin tap and everything.
Like I know Godzilla, like I know this Godzilla costume has a good resting face for like being just like irritated, but this one they got some really good shots. Like when he was on his back on the ground, he's just like.
You described it perfectly, Chaz, which was Rodan and Godzilla just sitting next to each other not doing anything. You said this looks like Prometheus and Bob.
Oh yeah, I see it.
And they're throwing around rocks at Ghidorah.
I see it.
Tape 45, Japan.
Throws a rock on Rodan's foot.
That sounds familiar.
Go look it up. You can
Because
find
you
it on
had
YouTube
childhood,
probably.
Willie.
Yeah. I also like how you made the connection where Rodan and Godzilla are being, which I think is an awesome effect to this day, is them in the giant orbs, like floating in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, so wait, they came from the Wizard of Oz or something?
I was making Pokeball references.
Same. I was
you-
thinking them in my head, but
Are you a good kaiju or a bad kaiju?
Master Ball,
The
go!
wicked kaiju of space.
Godzilla was caught.
Give a nickname to Godzilla? Gojira.
Wait, what does that say in the sky? Surrender, Mothra.
I will show you Monster Zero.
So we now come to the incredibly long list of alternate titles for this movie.
Oh boy, here we go.
That is a long one.
Starting with the original Japanese title of Great Monster War. The Japanese re-release title of Great Monster War, King Ghidorah vs. Godzilla. From America, we have Monster Zero, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, and Invasion of Astro Monster. From France, Invasion Planet X. From Spain, The Monsters Invade Earth. From Mexico, Monsters of the Galaxies. From Italy, Year 2000, The Invasion of the Astro Monsters. From Finland, The Space Monsters Are Attacking. From Poland, Monster Invasion. From Turkey, Monsters Coming from Space. From Czechoslovakia, Attack from the Unknown. From Yugoslavia, Invasion from Space. From Brazil, War of the Monsters. And my personal favorite from Germany, Command from the Dark.
Whoa! Way to be edgy, Germany.
So Jake, would you recommend Casino Royale and Godzilla vs. Monster Zero to a first-time viewer?
I cannot, in all conscience, recommend Casino Royale.
Dare you?
It is a mess. Quite frankly, it is not James Bond, and if you're using it as your entryway into James Bond, then you're going to have a bad time. However, if you're already a Bond fan and you have not seen Casino Royale 67, you owe it to yourself to see it at least once. It's something that you should just check off your list of pieces of media to see. I completely recommend Monster Zero / Astro Monster, whatever you want to call it. I completely recommend that one. It is a fun time. For your first time into Godzilla, you really can't go wrong. Not that much context is honestly needed to understand the story, and it is a good time from start to finish.
Be ready for the whitewater rapids of comedy movies, like to get yourself in the right mindset. Watch something like a Monty Python movie to at least get close, and then maybe the ending of Rat Race sped up and extended to the full time of a movie.
And the ending of Blazing Saddles.
And as for Godzilla and Monster X, definitely a good movie. Great alone. Did I get the title wrong?
Yes! But it's
Monster
fine.
X?
Yes, he did.
It's fine. Yeah, Monster X doesn't come for like 50 more
Monster
years in this
Zero.
It's
series.
Monster Zero from Planet X.
Solve for X where X equals 0.
Don't bring math into this, Willie. Please, please.
Every person in this room is numbered. Chaz is 0.
And so yeah. Anyway, both these movies really good. Just maybe don't experiment on drugs while watching Casino Royale.
For introduction to the series, I'm actually going to go against everyone and kind of say I don't think that either one is really a good one. Don't get me wrong. Godzilla's definitely a great movie. I highly recommend watching that. I kind of feel like it's not a representation of the Godzilla movies that we've seen. And obviously for Bond, if you're already a Bond fan, watch it, but only watch it if you know that this is not James Bond. If you like I would recommend watching it, but don't associate it with James Bond.
I highly recommend going into this thinking that this is the James Bond series, because you will either be incredibly confused or wonderfully delighted, or both. Because I think this film, if you like insanity, if you like complete nonsense from start to finish, absolutely go into it. And like Chaz said, if you like good British comedy, then you'll definitely enjoy it. In terms of Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, absolutely. It was one of the very first Godzilla films I ever watched as a kid. And if you're someone who enjoys great science fiction effects from the 1960s, which was like the heyday of when it was coming into its full form, then definitely start with it if that's what you're looking for.
Next time on James Bond, it's George Lazenby's one and only go as 007. But is he a one-hit wonder or a black sheep best forgotten? James Bond will return on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
And next time on Godzilla, we venture onto a tropical island for a seafaring adventure of bonkers proportions. Grab your surf rock guitar and melted butter for Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. Thank you all for listening to Bond vs. Godzilla. We'll see you next time with a martini in one hand and a rubber suit in the other.
Stay tuned and stay watching.
So are they gonna have to cool Godzilla's hot heart with a
it.
cool island
damn
song? Or are they gonna have to melt his icy heart with the warm tropical sun?
They're gonna melt his icy heart with a nuclear warhead, obviously.
Just Rodan and Mothra wearing a lei.
You're making these predictions, but you're kind of not wrong.